Good afternoon. Welcome to the last session for the day. I will start by talking about the academic mission of DePaul University, which is to serve as an incubator and repository of knowledge and to transfer that knowledge between faculty and students, as well as between university and society. Fulfilling that mission places research at the center of the university life. DePaul promotes faculty research work as public intellectuals, and its teacher-scholar model allows faculty to bring cutting-edge and societally impactful ideas and projects into their classrooms. It is my pleasure to serve as a moderator on the Perspectives on the Teacher-Scholar Model panel, where two DePaul faculty recipients of the National Foundation Career Award, Dr. Tanu Malik, Assistant Professor, College of Computing and Digital Media, and Dr. Bala Chaudhary, Assistant Professor, College of Science and Health, and one faculty recipient of the DePaul Spirit of Inquiry Award, Dr. Blair Davis, Associate Professor, College of Communication, will share their strategies and experiences for integrated teaching and research while keeping abreast with the latest advancements in their fields. I will now ask each of the speakers to introduce themselves and give some examples of activities that best demonstrate how they embrace the teacher-scholar model. After that, I will ask the panelists few questions that I prepared and then open up the questions and answer sessions to the audience at large. Similar to the other sessions, if you have a question, please type it into the Q&A area. If you see a question that you like to be answered, please give it a thumbs up and it will move ahead in the queue. So let me share my screen. We have a couple of slides put together, and we like to start with Dr. Malik.
Hi, Daniela. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me at this interesting panel. As Daniela mentioned, I'm an assistant professor in the School of Computing in Computer and Data Sciences. I, along with my colleague Alexander Raisin, also co-direct the Data Systems and Optimization Lab. A little bit about me. I'm right now at DePaul in my 5th year. When previously I had a stint at University of Chicago and Argonne National Lab, where I was a fellow and a research scientist. And before that, a postdoc at Purdue University, and before that, I was a graduate student at Johns Hopkins. In my entire career, I have worked with in the primary area of data management and databases. For the past 7 or 8 years, have been very much focused on issues of data lineage, which is how data comes into being and how we can develop efficient systems for capturing data lineage. And we have been applying that for improving the conduct of reproducible science. Next slide, please. So as Daniela mentioned, I was awarded the NSF Career Award in 2019. And one of the very important things about the Career Award is integration of teaching and research. I'm presenting one example over here. In a proposal, obviously there's a lot that you mentioned. This is one of the example which I have very sort of thoroughly investigated, and I really like to present it as a means for integrating teaching and research. And that this is the advanced course, CSE 595, lightweight virtual machines. It's currently a topics course. We are planning to make it as a systems course, which is available to students. The idea is to introduce this new topic, containers, which has become a medium for conducting reproducible science. And so the idea is that can we explain to students how these containers, for one, why these containers are there, how they can be used for conducting a reproducible science, and in the process learn, introduce them to some very core systems topics, which are actually at the heart of operating systems. So that's how this course is structured. The highlight of the course for both me and for the students are the student projects. So the students actually develop a container from basic operating system concepts. So they actually take an operating system and introduce methods in it, which builds a container. And then, so that is a code template that I provide to them. And along with that, they read research papers and extend that container to incorporate some of the methods that the research papers are presenting. So far, this course has been run twice. We've overall had 16 independent student projects, which for me, they're like a treasure. They implement, as I mentioned, a course, the container, and that's sort of taken from a book, which is Docker in Action. And then they read the papers and compare the state-of-art research. Finally, this brings it all to the research, which is the NSF Career Project, which is SciUnit.run. It's a project running in its 9th year. Funded through many mechanisms, through many federal agencies, and it brings all the projects. We compare that actually with the online availability of what SciUnit is. So they actually compare that what they have produced with SciUnit. I think I'll just stop. I'm sure I have exceeded my time, and look forward to the panel.
Thank you very much, Tanu. I would like to introduce Bala.
Hi, my name is Bala Chaudhary. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Environmental Science and Studies. I just want to share a little bit about what we do in my lab, and then just an overview of the Career Award. So in my lab, we study plant, soil, microbial ecology. So how plants and microbes interact in their biotic and abiotic soil environment, and then how that influences ecological functions and services. So I'm interested in a particular type of association between plants and fungi called mycorrhizae, and how those communities are structured. And to get at that, we use lots of different approaches. And so we use macro ecological kind of continent scale field experiments. And then we pair our observations with other remote sensing data that other scientists collect and make available. We're also interested in trait-based ecology. So we look at the specific traits of the fungi, and then use those to try to predict how they behave, how they move in the environment. And then finally, we use a lot of synthesis approaches in my work too, where we combine existing data from already published studies through meta-analysis and other kind of phylogenetic syntheses to try to understand the ecology of these plant microbe interactions. If we could go to the next. So the career award that I have is really examining how these plant-associated microbes disperse across landscapes. So how do we move? And it's a basic science question interested in how microbes move around the world. But of course, there are many applications in not only in ecology, but in disease and medicine as well. And this is kind of the 30,000 foot overview of the grant. It's a 5-year large project, but I just wanted to highlight how it was stressed to those of us applying, and then now when I'm reviewing, that this integration between teaching and research is really an important component. And not just that the research activities can be supported by educational activities, but really that they feed back. And so that the educational activities or data generated using educational activities will feed back and support the research objectives of the grant. And so, like I was talking about in the previous slide, the work in the grant really follows these themes in the lab. So synthesis work, field experiments, and lab experiments. And then the educational components involve a lot of the same data, the open data that's available to anybody, and teaching students how to use and manipulate the data through original projects. And so I developed a graduate course on advanced ecological data analysis that uses open data from this national ecological network. And then partnering with schools to potentially engage in schoolyard science so that students can kind of help collect this data and be involved in the scientific endeavor. And then the final educational component was some research and original scholarship we were interested in engaging in to examine barriers that racial and ethnic minorities have to entering and persisting in our field. And so identifying the synergies between research and education was a challenge, but it's been really an exciting part of the project to push those boundaries. And I'll just stop there.
Thank you very much. Blair?
Hi there. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me today. My name is Blair Davis, and I'm an associate professor of media and cinema studies in the College of Communication. I'm also the program director of our communication and media MA degree. And my path to becoming a professor, I've come to learn, was a little different than most people that I meet in academia. I am a first generation student. I'm the first person to go to university in my family. Let alone to go on and do an advanced degree. I then became an adjunct instructor at the same time as doing my PhD. So I was balancing my research with actively teaching. As a doctoral student, I then went on to become a visiting professor on the other side of Canada, where I'm from, and then finally came to the United States on the tenure track. And I really credit my career to my mentor, the late Professor Paul Heyer of Wilfrid Laurier University in Canada, and he encouraged me to go to grad school in the first place. He saw what I was doing as an undergrad, and I connected with him and his research there, worked as a research assistant as an undergraduate, and then from there forged a really strong friendship. He actually was the best man at my wedding. In addition to my mentor. And he helped foster my love of media and media studies. I've really taken to the subfield of comic book studies therein, and lately I've done a lot of publications relating to issues of race and class and gender. As well, I do a lot of work with what is known as transmedia studies, which is how stories are told across different media. Take, for example, the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how now television shows on Disney Plus are extending the way in which that narrative world is built. So I look at the connections of how these stories are told across different media. And my two most recent projects that I'm working on are both related to notions of culture and comics. I have a book coming out later this year from Texas Press of Comics and Women, about the history of women as characters and creators in the early years of comics, and as well a book that is under advanced contract now from Rutgers called Christianity and Comics, tracing the history of how the comics medium has represented Christianity in all different forms. And next slide, please. And I want to talk about this notion of mentorship as really one of the key ways that I've benefited from the integration of teaching and research, and that I try to pass along in my own career in terms of the teacher-scholar model as being an opportunity to actively mentor students and to work with them in a very direct capacity. I've written a lot with my students over the past 10 years. In 2010, co-wrote a book chapter for an anthology with one of my top undergrad students. We studied levels of gore in 100 years of in 100 horror films over 10 years. I don't recommend doing that. It was really gross. I also wrote a book, a chapter for a book that I edited and brought on one of my top grad students to write a chapter for that. And then most recently, this book of comics and women, I co-wrote with one of my students, Peyton Brunet. Approached her as she was finishing her undergrad degree and said, you're really a strong writer. Can I write a book with you? And so as she did her graduate degree with me, we worked on this book together, and we've just completed it. We're putting the final touches on it now for the press. And so this mentorship can be done in that sort of writing capacity. It can also be done through the level of an independent study with a graduate or an undergraduate student, something that as professors, we don't necessarily get paid for, but I like to do it. It's a way in which I can actively balance my own research interests with those of my students. There is also the undergraduate research assistant program, in which undergrad students have the ability to work alongside you as you do your research. And I've been able to take advantage of that a few times in my career as I've worked on various different books. So this idea of mentorship, I'm sort of paying it forward from my own mentor, and I've been fortunate enough to do that with some of my students throughout my career thus far. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to bring the panelists back on screen, so I see all three of them. I will be taking questions, so if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A. I will start with the first question that I prepared in the meantime. What advantages does the teacher-scholar model have over a more traditional approach, such as either teaching-focused institution or research-focused institution or model? And it's a question for all three of you.
I can begin if you'd like, Daniela. It's the teacher-scholar model is something that I've sort of embraced even before I fully knew what it was. I don't consider myself an academic necessarily when I introduce myself to people on the street. Like I'm a teacher. And then, well, where do you teach? And oh, you're a professor. One of the best compliments I ever got was from somebody who said, he's a professor, but he's actually just a regular guy. So this kind of research R1 model has a certain stigma to it, perhaps. I like the teacher-scholar model because research itself is a learning process. And when I'm writing a book, it's a journey for myself. It's not that I'm just typing up the facts and the figures and here it is. People will ask me, what are you writing? What's your book about? I'll say, I don't fully know. I'll tell you when it's finished. I'm still figuring out the larger patterns. And so as I get into teaching with my students, I encourage that same process with them. I don't just have a set of facts and figures I want to tell them and then thank you very much. We are discovering the patterns and the larger significances together as a group, the same way that as I'm digging through it all as a scholar in my research, I'm figuring it out as I'm going along writing it. So that's the sort of the hybrid of teaching and scholarship.
Thank you. Kanu or Bala, do you want to add anything to this?
Well, it sure does save time than being just pure teaching based or research based. And yeah, I mean once you are able to learn as well as apply that learning or use that learning for advancing research, it's definitely a lot more satisfying. Because the fact that a student has learned what you are trying to advance, that gives definitely a satisfying feeling.
I don't have a whole lot to add, but I guess I would say it comes from, in science, what do we do? What we do is inquiry. And so it doesn't make much sense for me to go into my lectures and just spew out a big collection of facts. I think it makes me a better teacher to teach inquiry and teach the process. And then the students really then understand, at least in my discipline, what science is. It's not memorizing, pathways or or other facts. It's about questions and addressing them with evidence collected in a systematic way.
And you all mentioned independent studies, right? So one way to integrate teaching and research is through these independent studies. And I would like to piggyback on what Tanu said about student projects being her treasure. So I would like you to comment about how do you measure student success in research? Because for us, right, it's easier, right, as faculty in our own disciplines to define success. How do you measure in your own group student success in research?
So one may say, well, a direct measure is if the student has published something. One may take it to that level, but often students are, taking them to a publication is a very long effort or a very long drawn sort of process. Success could be measured within a quarter, and hardly students are able to publish a paper within a quarter's worth of work. And in that case, as a computer scientist, for me, it is, have you produced working code? Code that can be demonstrated to another colleague, to the lab group, and it is working and functional. Increasingly, I have been emphasizing the practice of adopting reproducible methods while they are coding. So are they documenting their work? Is their work entirely, so if someone else takes it, can they reproduce it easily? So those are small successes which go a long way in apart from the larger question of, hey, what particular research question have they addressed? So on a shorter term, those are very important measures of success for me. Is their code working? Because they often come to meetings and they'll say, well, we have done this, but is it actually working or not? That's an entirely different question. Yeah.
I would say that success, in my opinion, from the teacher model is whether they're still in science. Did they persist in the field? And involving undergraduates in research, it's one of these top 10 high impact teaching practices. Activities that undergraduates engage in that really are transformative. So undergraduate research is one of them, study abroad is one, there's a whole kind of list of these. And so, engaging in undergraduate research is a way for students to build connections with faculty, learn about what the knowledge production field is, and then kind of get hooked. And so, in my opinion, if they get hooked, then it sort of feeds back to what Tanu was saying. Like, if they get hooked, then I know that they'll stick around and write the paper, or we'll continue that relationship once they leave, and we'll work on it together. So I think I see it as persistence and wanting to remain in the field.
And I really like that phrase that Bala just used of knowledge production. And when we talk about success in research, we talk about the skills of synthesizing research and being able to gather up everything and to put it in order, and then also analyzing that data set and being able to look at it and find something new within it. And certainly that analysis at the higher level is how we measure the research productivity. And I've always likened it, as my mentor taught me, to the process of pattern recognition. Being able to see a hidden or a new pattern within data that the pattern was always there. You were just able to unearth it and discover it. One of my favorite quotes is that all knowledge is actually pattern recognition. And fun fact, that quote is from an issue of The Incredible Hulk.
Thank you. And now I'll piggyback on what Blair said regarding the role of mentorship in where he is today, right? His career path. I share the same experience. I think the teachers that I had in my life really influenced and helped me to become who I am today. So I would like to ask each one of you to comment on your mentorship style. And everybody has a different mentorship style. And not only your mentorship style, but the kind of mentorship that you encourage in your group. You mentioned undergraduate students who might work closely with master's students or with PhD students. Can you describe your mentorship model that you adopt?
I can start. So I really enjoy thinking about mentorship and learning about it. There's really great scholarship on mentorship coming out these days, and what works, and particularly what works for traditionally underrepresented students in science. And so, I like how these one-on-one mentor-mentee relationships are kind of changing to become more multi-mentor models and network models and nested models. And I would say that that's what we employ in my lab, that students learn from me, but they're learning from each other. And we do this, I mean, not so much these days in person, but we do this with our Slack group, and there's a lot of sort of side discussions and topic-based connections happening. I also do my best to put mentees in touch with other experts and kind of advocate them for widening their mentor network, so that it's not just me. I want them to gain experience from other folks in the field and learn about different approaches. So I like these kind of network mentors that are popping up. It seems like a lot of people are adopting them.
And I've found that there's no one model of how that relationship, there's no formula for mentorship, really. You're really discovering a relationship each time. I either have a mentor or take on a mentee, that everybody's personal circumstances are different, and you have a lot of grace at times with meeting somebody where their needs are, and not just your own needs as a researcher and as a professor, and finding out sort of what complements one another. Is that some tasks and skills are better suited to divvy up certain ways. So I would say that there is really a personalization process going on as you figure out that role together through the process.
Yeah, I'll agree with Blair. I don't have a single sort of formula for mentorship. I do. I mean, the level of mentorship also increases as you have graduate students with whom you have a lot more close collaboration. And over there, I have sort of one sort of rule I mention is that devote 80% to your own project and 20% to someone else's project. So if there are 3 projects that are running in my lab, have 80% of your time that you are devoting to your own project, but then 20% devote to someone else's project, because then you have an outsider view of that project and you can provide much better perspectives than that person on their own. So that is something that I keep stressing on, but I don't have one single way of mentorship. Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to remind the audience that if you have a question, there is a Q&A area at the bottom of your screen. So please type your question there, and I will answer the panelists. I will ask the panelists your question. In the meantime, I have a question for Blair. So you are a recipient of the Spirit of Inquiry Award, and I received it too, and I was very proud when the university awarded me the Spirit of Inquiry Award as a recognition of my research and creative activities. Can you tell us a little bit about what is the Spirit of Inquiry Award and how it aligns with the teacher-scholar model?
Absolutely, yeah. I was honored to receive it in 2017 at the same time as I was awarded tenure. It was a doubly proud day. It is DePaul University's highest honor given for excellence in research. It's awarded once a year at our annual convocation ceremony. It's awarded through the University Research Council, and it really sort of it connects to the teacher-scholar model because scholarship is sort of envisioned as a process that is not just focused on the instructor. It's that scholarship is not just doing my own research. It's a process that is meant to unite the scholar as a teacher with students, in that we are, as scholars, always learning about the field anew, always trying to transform our own knowledge of the field as we then pass on that knowledge to students, and then in turn navigate the field with them in their courses. As I write a new book, for example, I often bring in some of the material that I am learning about into the classroom and ask students what they think. And so it is a doubly transformative process for both them and for myself in that teacher-scholar model.
Thank you. How about the NSF Career Award, Tanu and Bala? Can you describe the process? And you mentioned about, an important component of an NSF Career Award is the integration of teaching and research, but also it has to have a strong research component. Can you describe how did you build up that, research component? What were the steps, and what are the key factors in securing such an award?
Okay, maybe I'll go first since I'm unmuted. Yes, definitely. I would like to sort of repeating on what Daniela mentioned. Yes, integration of teaching and research is very important for career, because it's there is as much of it being an award as much as the prestige sort of that has gotten associated with it, where they look at it as a mechanism for someone to continue working in that field for a long period of time. It's just not 5 years. They are imagining that you would be working in that area for a much longer period of time, and advancing it. So with that focus, NSF wants that there are possibilities not only in research, but also in teaching. And here, I must say that from a teaching perspective, we are definitely, being at DePaul is definitely an advantage for us. Because we have so many teaching resources and so many ways by which we can extend whatever we are doing to the teaching community. Obviously by floating new courses and advancing the area, but then we have, at least in the CS, for instance, there are programs which are what one of our associate deans runs, such as CS for All, which is computer science for all CPS students. And at least in my part, we could see that there are ways by which the conduct of reproducible science can be brought early on to high school students, and that could definitely improve the overall area. So there are various mechanisms, and I would encourage early career faculty members to definitely look at the various possibilities that DePaul provides. The Center of Teaching and Learning, they provide mechanisms, and you can think about how your research can improve the way they conduct their programs. That itself is seen as a seen as a big step forward from NSF's perspective. To answer a little bit about the second part, which is the research, obviously that takes a long time. I had started working on these problems before I came to DePaul at University of Chicago, and we had a fairly good idea about one part of the problem, how to solve it. And we could show that to actual users that it improves the conduct of reproducible science for those group of scientists. I guess then it was taking the next leap forward, which is answering the entire sort of realm of reproducibility, which includes not only sharing code and data, but also like if Daniela is going to reproduce my results, what issues is she as a new person going to face? Just sort of answering them from a systems perspective took the research part. And that sort of requires, yeah, just going deeper. Yes.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of what Thanu said, and the educational component is, I mean, that's what we do here. And so it was not difficult to, you know, when I thought I want to involve schools and do schoolyard science, that was easy because we already have strong connections with schools. And then I had to just talk with those people and say, this is what I'm planning, would you provide a letter of collaboration? And they were like, great, you know, because we already had that connection, and that's the strong part of DePaul. We have those educational resources, and the quote unquote broader impacts is we're really good at that. For the research side, I think that was where I mean, again, it took a really long time. And that was, I think, where I leaned on my external network, and folks through professional societies that I know, prior mentors, conversations, just floating ideas past my mentors. Well, do you think this would work? Could I do it on a big scale? And then part of my research is facilitated by a large research network. And so really, you know, many meetings with them to flush out how can we do this, you know, using your network, and what will it take, and all of those details, and that kind of homework that was incorporated into the grant. I think that helped demonstrate the commitment and the feasibility of doing it. And then also, like Thanu said, the previous, having preliminary data. So having data already that demonstrates the capacity to do the work on a limited scale. And so, you know, you don't have to show that you can do it all already, but just show that you can do it, and you're able to produce results, and you want to take it a step further to address specific mechanisms. I also had a really risky part of my research plan, which I just came right out and said in the grant, listen, I don't know how to do this, but I think it's going to be really fun with me and my students to figure it out, you know, to tinker in the lab together. And you don't want it all to be risky, but I think having a component that's, you know, there's risk involved, but there's big payoff if it works. I think that NSF likes to fund that because, you know, what was said previously, they're funding people, you know, they're funding people with this program that, you know, they want to invest in to keep working in this specific research area.
Thank you. So two common things between the two of you, right, in what you describe as being important in getting an NSF Career Award. So one is to have some preliminary results, right, to have some data collected that can support your research hypothesis. And throughout the day, right, the same idea came out from these internal grants or AGIF grants. That's why DePaul is providing this seed funding in order to help our faculty, students, and staff to actually, you know, spearhead these ideas and get these preliminary results. And second is the collaboration, right, and the network of people with whom you not only bounce ideas, but you exchange data, you exchange code, publications, and so on. So, which was also one of the theme, right, for one of the panels that we had before lunch today. Having said that, I would like to take, there are two questions in the Q&A area. So the first question is, in the mentoring of, in the process of mentoring teams of numerous student research assistants, any best practices in communication protocols and or platforms such as Slack, Microsoft Teams, and so on? And
So
yes, Tanu, go ahead.
yeah. I definitely need a direct channel in my in my lab. We have a direct channel. Should it be Slack? I use Skype. That's much easier. Yeah, I mean, we are all virtual, so Zoom and Skype have become our, bread and butter kind of. So those are the two mechanisms by which I work. Again, as computer scientists, those are sufficient enough. But I must say that I do a lot of code review. So, a person knowing, the student knowing how to operate, for instance, on GitHub, the student knowing how to, push, pull, merge repositories, those are vital aspects of surviving in my lab. So that's yeah, it depends upon the domain then. Yeah.
Thank you.
I use Slack. We started using Slack maybe 2 years ago, and it's been great. We realized I switched to Slack because of the emails. I couldn't keep on top of the emails, and I was the clear bottleneck of information flow in the lab. And so when we started using Slack, then we organized by projects, by topic channels. And that's when the students really started helping each other, because I think it just empowered them to help each other and communicate with each other. They can always direct message me, and there's a lot of direct messaging to me, which is great. But I couldn't keep on top of the emails. And so Slack has been very helpful for my group in that. It's also fun because alumni just want to stay in the Slack channel. And so then they go off and take jobs and do different things, but they pop in every once in a while and say hello. And we had a Zoom end of the year holiday party, and a bunch of alumni came back, and there was some fun Slack interaction. So I've had a great success with Slack and love it.
How about you, Blair?
Well, I tend to work more one-on-one with students. And so just tying into the second question there about working with students in one discipline versus the other, I don't have a lab, for example, and the research environment is much more sort of independent. I don't sit in the movie theater and whisper over the shoulder, take notes about that. And so it is a very different sort of research process in which I sort of give them their task, tell them what to look for, and then they are giving me the work, which is semi-completed, and there isn't any course correction in real time in the lab. And if something blows up, I only know about it after it's blown up, to use that metaphor. And I think perhaps personality-wise, perhaps some of us get into media studies because we're introverts and we like to sit in the dark alone and study things. And so perhaps that poses its own challenges for that level of independence that then I'm having to then see what has been produced and then steer and course correct if needed as we go along.
Thank you. So how about your students, Bala? What particular traits in your students or yourself make the collaboration easy or difficult?
My lab has a real community feel. I think partly because I'm interested in, what I talked about before, retention, kind of hooking people, keeping them in. And so I feel like that the personal connections can be important to that. It was important to me in staying in science. It really was the people that kept me in science. And so we tend to be pretty extroverted. We've definitely had lab members that are not as extroverted, but I think my approach to including and engaging students with different traits or different types of personalities is to just provide lots of options. So, there's Slack, there's email, there's Zoom, there's one-on-one. And so whatever way you want to connect with me or feel comfortable getting feedback on your project is available.
Thank you. Tanu, how about computer science, data science students?
I guess I would say that there is a little bit of self-selection that goes on in this process. The student comes in and they recognize that they cannot keep up with with the level of detail or the level of productivity that the lab is seeking for, and they may just just withdraw from the process. So the aspect about personality trait is much later. They first have to face up with producing something, and I guess that's where the self-selection sort of happens. So I haven't sort of I don't know how to answer the thing. Yes, I don't try to put in any constraints with respect to how they can reach me, with respect to any time constraints. It's essentially how we can engage with each other with respect to exploring an idea, being creative, or pushing a topic further. And then obviously they know the deadlines, or they know that how they have to proceed, and then the self-selection comes. There could be issues with respect to not meeting or not sort of producing enough, and then at that time I do have a one-on-one talk with the student as to what is happening, try to learn, are they having family problems, or they're having sort of problems with just concentrating or focusing on schoolwork, and so on.
Thank you. As we are concluding this session, what are your final thoughts on best practices or top tips for integrating teaching with the research for your colleagues and for the audience?
I've had great success integrating units into a particular class around the new research project for a book that I'm writing. At one point, I even built an entire course around a book in progress, and I had a lot of success that way about directly doing at least 1 week on that particular research topic in a class.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say courses. I mean, in computer science, I think advanced courses is the best way to integrate teaching and research.
How about you, Bala?
A little tongue-in-cheek, research leave. Research leave helped a lot with just the freedom to really dive deep into not just the research, but the educational components. I think, sometimes we don't always have time to evaluate. We don't always have time to assess the educational components that we're working on. And so having a little time to think about and reflect on our educational integration, and having time to even write it up and share it, you know, as publications. These are unique, novel educational experiences that we're all engaging in that could be shared through papers. So having a little time to work on that was very helpful to me.
Thank you. So one more thank you to all three panelists for joining us today. There will be definitely follow-up conversations on the topic, and I will come to you with the request to mentor other faculty on either getting an NSF Career Award, applying at least for it, as well as on Spirit of Inquiry Awards, was the process, and helping faculty to get there to the phase of getting such an award. Having said that, we are moving into our closing remarks. So this is the end of the day, and I put together some closing remarks for the event. Everybody can say, right, that today has been a great day, right, to come together as a group to celebrate innovation at DePaul. Although in a virtual environment, I could still feel the energy in the room, the passion for what we do to make DePaul a better place, and the synergies and potential for collaborations that will follow after this day. As always, I'm so proud of all our accomplishments and what is yet to come. And I'm very, very honored to work with all of you to expand and enrich the research, creative activity, and innovation enterprise here at DePaul. In my closing remarks, I wish to thank the presenters and organizing committee for all the hard work to make DePaul Innovation Day a success. I would like to give my special thanks to Provost Salma Ghanem for all her advice, encouragement, and shared vision for innovation at DePaul. Personal thanks also go to Betty Shanahan, Associate Vice President for Administration and Operations, for being a constant source of inspiration of ideas for sessions, speakers, and next steps in our work. I will not end my thank you remarks without thanking the Office of Research Services, the Office of Marketing and Communication, and the Office of Academic Events for all the support with the meeting logistics and contributions to the various sessions. Personal thanks go to Victoria Simek and Melissa Grady for always being one step ahead to pull such an event together and working out all the details behind the scenes. In order to continue the synergy started at our Innovation Day today, the Office of Research Services will be hosting monthly lunch and learning sessions this spring. And Lauren mentioned this during the internal grant sessions. So we'll have 3 virtual sessions in spring with the plan to continue these sessions in fall in person. So for spring, we are planning one event on March 5th, Innovation Through AGIF, where AGIF awardees are invited to come to discuss where they are with their research and innovation projects, as well as discuss how, and inspire other faculty on how to apply for this type of awards. On April 23rd, we are hosting a University Platforms to Support Research session, where we'll be discussing about what are the platforms out there that support research in terms of software that supports data privacy, storage, data analysis such as RedCap. And the third session is scheduled for May 21st, outreach to increase visibility of research. What are the resources here at DePaul that we can use to increase the visibility of our research, including the new redesigned university research website, how you can actually submit research highlights to be published on the university website. These sessions, we are hoping that they will enable faculty to network with others across colleges, share their research like they have done today, learn about funding opportunities and other support for research, and foster communities of practice. The meetings will be conducted virtually with the intention, again, to be held on campus on fall. Any other ideas are welcome. We are looking for topics for sessions for fall, so please don't hesitate to reach out to me and communicate those ideas. A survey will also be sent out by Victoria next week to ask for your feedback for the event today, as well as for ideas on other events and also how you would like to be involved. A final announcement about the upcoming AGIF program. So the deadline is on February 15, and then for the internal grants on March 15. So please submit your proposals, right? So one of the key factors for success is to apply, right? Like Kathy mentioned in her presentation. And finally, I would like to conclude by many thanks to all of you who participated, who were in the audience as well. We hope that you found the meeting inspiring in many, many ways. This concludes our second Innovation Day, and we are looking forward to the third Innovation Day, which will be on January 28, 2022. So please save the date on your calendars. And for sure, you are going to hear from me throughout the year about the event. Thank you so much and have a good weekend.